The alien vampire collapsed from thirst, but the human gave her what she needed most. The wind blew hard across the red desert of Eridan 3, carrying sharp dust and the taste of old metal in the air. Eli Carter walked alone, pulling a light hover sled. Behind him, searching for salvage from the last shipwreck. He had been here before, many times, and always came back with scraps, wires, broken tech enough to trade for food. But today felt different. The sun was low, and shadows stretched, like long fingers over the rocks. As Eli walked past a shattered boulder, he noticed something strange lying in the sand. At first, he thought it was just another piece of debris, maybe a torn pressure suit, but then he saw movement, very faint. Like a twitch, he stopped, frowned, and slowly stepped closer. It wasn't scrap. It was a person, a girl, or something that looked like one. Her skin was white like frozen milk, her lips cracked and dry, her clothes were torn, dusty, and strange not human design, and her eyes, when they opened just a little, flashed deep crimson before shutting again. Eli crouched beside her, gently tapped her cheek. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked. She didn't speak, just made a dry, raspy sound from her throat. He touched her neck, found a weak pulse, slow and fading. She was alive, but just barely. Eli looked around, unsure what to do. He grabbed his canteen, opened it, and carefully poured a few drops into her mouth. She didn't swallow. The water just spilled down her chin. Then, suddenly, her hand moved, trembling, reaching for something. In her grip was a broken glass vial, stained red inside. That's when Eli noticed the two sharp fangs, barely visible between her parted lips. His chest tightened. A vampire, not a human one, but one of the alien kind, rare, feared, and hunted across the galaxy. He'd heard the stories, seen warning posters in the outposts. Dangerous, they said, uncontrollable. But this one wasn't dangerous now. She was dying. Eli could have walked away. No one would blame him. No one would ever know. But something in him refused to turn his back. She made a soft sound, almost like a whisper. Sty. It was barely a word, but he understood. She didn't need water. She needed blood. He stared at his own hand, then at her cracked lips. His fingers trembled. But he reached for the knife on his belt. Just a small cut, he told himself. Just enough. He sliced his palm gently, winced as blood started to rise. Then, with slow, careful movements, he held his hand near her mouth. At first, nothing happened. Then her nostrils flared, and her lips moved closer. She latched on, not with hunger, not with force, just barely touching, just drinking enough to stay alive. It lasted maybe 10 seconds. Her eyes opened wide, brighter now, glowing faintly in the dim light. She pulled away, coughed, and looked at him with something like confusion or fear. "You, human," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. He nodded. Surprised she could speak English at all. "You're lucky I found you," he said. She shook her head slowly. "No, you unlucky." Eli raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" But she was already drifting again, her energy fading despite the small feeding. He sighed and wrapped his cut hand, then gently lifted her into the hover sled. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if she'd wake up and turn into the monster the stories warned about. But he couldn't leave her. Something deep inside told him this girl, this vampire, wasn't like the others. The sky darkened as he pulled the sled behind him, each step harder than the last, as cold wind howled against his face. Somewhere in the distance, an old storm beacon blinked red, maybe a shelter, maybe more trouble. He looked down at the girl again. She was still, almost peaceful, but in her pale hand, she still held the broken blood vial. Like a memory she refused to let go, and beside her cheek, a single tear had formed, not from pain, but something else. Eli didn't know it yet, but by offering her his blood, he had just changed her fate, and maybe his own. Eli walked through the wind with one hand gripping the hoversled rope and the other pressing against his bleeding palm. The desert was growing colder, the sky turning purple, and the stars were beginning to blink into view, like quiet watchers. The girl behind him didn't speak, didn't move, but he could hear her shallow breathing beneath the worn-out blanket he'd wrapped her in. Her name was still unknown to him, her purpose a mystery, but her thirst had nearly killed her. And now, part of him was inside her, shared through blood, a choice he never thought he'd make in his life. He spotted the shape of a broken structure half buried in the dust, an old outpost. Left behind during the trade wars, the door was stuck, but with a few kicks and a burst from his tool gun, it slid open enough to pull her inside. He laid her down on a slab that once served as a cargo bench, checked her forehead cold, but not like before. Her color was returning, but her eyes stayed closed, her body barely moving. He poured water into a cracked metal cup, drank a little himself, and then sat down across from her. For a long while, he just listened to the wind, the hum of a long-dead generator, and the strange silence that filled the room. Then, without warning, her voice reached out to him, soft, slow, and shaped by effort. "You gave it." Willingly, Eli looked up, surprised to see her eyes open and focused on him. Red but calm. "You needed it," he said simply. She blinked, studying him like he was something she'd never seen before. "No one gives blood without a price," she whispered. "I'm not no one," he said. "I'm Eli." She looked down at her hands, her fingers curling as if they remembered what they used to be. "Virea," she said at last. "That's your name?" She nodded slowly, her face unreadable. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "So, Virea, what were you doing alone out there? This place ain't exactly picnic grounds." She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Escaping from who?" "My own," she said, her voice heavier now. He frowned, watching her expression shift like clouds in a storm. "They wanted to keep the old ways," she continued, "feeding without choice, using fear, and you. I wanted peace." Her head turned slightly, as if she was listening to something beyond the room. "Peace doesn't feed us," she added quietly, "but I thought maybe kindness could." Eli didn't know what to say. He had heard plenty of things about vampires. None of them involved kindness. But Virea didn't look like a monster. She looked like someone tired of running. Suddenly, her body tensed. Her eyes darted to the door. He followed her gaze, heart racing. "What is it?" he asked. "Something's coming," she said, voice sharper. He stood, grabbed his plasma rifle from his pack, and moved to the door, peeking outside. Nothing. Yet, only dust, swirling in the cold wind. "Can you move?" he asked, turning back to her. She sat up slowly, biting her lip, her strength returning little by little. "I can try," as she rose to her feet. He noticed the strange shimmer on her skin, again like glass, catching light. Then she froze, staring past him. A red dot flickered on the wall, a laser marker. Without thinking, Eli pulled her down just as the wall exploded. A blast tearing through the room where she'd been standing. Dust and fire filled the air. A dark shape hovered outside the ruin, mechanical wings humming, glowing eyes fixed on them. A bounty drone. Virea grabbed Eli's shoulder, her fingers cold but steady. "They've found me," she said. Eli looked at the drone, then at her. "You trust me?" he asked. She hesitated only a second, then nodded. He raised his rifle, eyes locked on the red glow in the smoke. "Then let's fight back," he said. And as the first shot rang through the desert night, the bond between human and vampire was no longer just about survival. It was war now, and it had only just begun. The wrecked outpost was burning behind them, a red glow rising into the night like a warning flare. Eli's pulse thundered in his ears as he ran, dragging Virea with one hand while gripping the plasma rifle with the other. Her steps were shaky, but she didn't complain, not once. Her breath came in short gasps, her eyes glowing faintly, but her feet kept moving. The bond between them wasn't just blood, now it was survival. Shared fear, shared fire. They ducked behind a collapsed fuel tank, half buried in the sand. Smoke from the drone's missile curled into the wind above them. Virea dropped to her knees, blood trickling from her shoulder. I wasn't ready, she muttered. I didn't think they'd come this soon. Eli knelt beside her, checked her wound. It wasn't deep, but she was clearly weakened again. You need more, he said, looking at his hand. She turned away. No, not now, not like this. You'll die. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at him, her voice soft but serious. There's something I didn't tell you. Eli raised an eyebrow. She looked around first, then leaned closer. I wasn't just escaping my kind, she said. I was carrying something. What? Hope. She reached into the torn fabric near her ribs and pulled out a small crystal capsule. Glowing faint red. This, she whispered, is synthetic blood. A prototype I made in secret. Eli stared, stunned. I was going to prove. We didn't need to feed on the unwilling anymore, she continued, but they found out. Destroyed the lab, burned everything. He looked at the capsule in her hands, small, fragile, but shining with power. This is why they're hunting you, he said. She nodded. I'm a traitor to them. Before he could speak, a sound echoed across the desert, deep, pulsing, mechanical. A new drone, larger than before, flying low and slow like it was scanning for survivors. Eli's fingers tightened around the rifle. Virea clutched the capsule and looked at him. If they get this, it's over, she said. You won't let them, he replied. I'm not strong enough. Then I'll carry it, he said. She stared at him for a moment, almost like she didn't believe he meant it. Then, slowly, she handed him the capsule. Why are you helping me? She asked. Eli slid the crystal into a secure pouch under his jacket, then met her gaze. Because no one else will, he said, and because someone gave me hope once too. The drone passed overhead, scanning the wreckage behind them. They had only minutes before it turned their way. We need to go, Eli said. Helping her stand, she nodded, leaning on him for support, but then she stopped and looked at the ground. What is it? She bent down, brushed the sand away, revealing a dark metal grate. Old tunnel access, she said. From the war era. Eli dropped to his knees and helped clear it. Within seconds they had the cover open, revealing a narrow ladder descending into blackness. Better than dying in the open, he said. Virea gave a tired smile. Unless there's worse down there, Eli shrugged. Let's find out. He climbed down first, rifle strapped to his back, then helped her follow. As they reached the bottom, the cover slid back into place, hiding them from the skies. They stood in a dark tunnel, lit only by the red glow from her skin and the faint pulse of emergency strips on the wall. The air was cold, stale, but it was safe for now. As they walked deeper into the underground ruins, Vera whispered behind him, "You're different, Eli." He didn't turn, just kept walking forward. "So are you," he said, "and maybe that's why we might actually survive this." And above them, in the open sky, the drone hovered silently, scanning, waiting. But it would not find them here, not yet. The tunnel walls were old, cracked with age, and covered in moss-like growth that pulsed faintly with blue light. Eli moved carefully, rifle in hand, every step echoing down the dark corridor. Like a warning, behind him, Virea walked slowly, one hand against the wall. Her other clutched to her side. Her wound was healing, but too slow. The bond with Eli had helped, but it wasn't enough anymore. The tunnel split ahead, and Eli paused at the junction. To the left, thick steam drifted out from vents. Warm and heavy. To the right, only silence and cold air. Virea didn't speak, but her eyes glowed faintly. Scanning the paths. "This way," she said, pointing left. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded. "I can smell power. And blood." He didn't ask what she meant. He just followed. They moved down the left tunnel, steps soft, hearts pounding, and then they saw it a small underground maintenance hub, long forgotten by any living soul, but still working. Flickering screens glowed on the walls. A central power coil hummed in the center, and in the corner an old cryopod cracked, leaking. Inside it floated something, a figure half-formed, like an unfinished creature, caught between species. Its body was translucent, its eyes sealed shut. Eli aimed his rifle. "Don't," Virea whispered, pulling his arm down gently. "What is that?" She stepped forward, staring at the creature like it belonged to her past. "Bloodborne," she said softly. "One of the early experiments." Her fingers touched the pod's surface, and the creature inside stirred. It opened its eyes bright crimson, locked eyes with her. Then its mouth opened, not in speech, but in a silent scream. Alarms blared suddenly, echoing through the chamber. Eli swore and turned toward the hallway. "We need to move," he shouted. "They'll hear this from orbit." Virea didn't move. She stared at the pod with something between sorrow and fear. "They left them down here to rot," she whispered, "to die slowly." Eli grabbed her arm. "I'm sorry, but we don't have time to save the ghosts of your past." Reluctantly, she turned away, but the pod door hissed open behind them. They turned just in time to see the creature fall forward, crawling toward them on weak limbs. It reached out not to attack, but to cling to her. It whimpered, knelt and whispered something in her language, gently lowering it to the floor. Then she looked at Eli, eyes hard. "We're not leaving it." Before he could argue, the entire tunnel shook. Above them, something had landed, something heavy. "Tracker. Ship," Eli muttered, checking the charge on his weapon. "They found us," Vera said, rising to her feet, lifting the creature in her arms like it weighed nothing. Eli stared at her. "You're hurt. You can't run with that thing." "I'm not leaving it," she repeated. He nodded slowly. "Then I'll cover you." They ran, the blue lights flickering, the air now filled with the metallic scent of danger. The sound of metal claws echoed behind them, mechanical hunters pouring into the tunnel system. Eli turned and fired a burst. The plasma bolt, lighting the corridor like fire in a storm. One drone exploded in a shower of sparks, but more were coming. "Go," he yelled. "I'll slow them down." But Virea stopped and looked back at him, her red eyes glowing brighter than ever. "No," she said firmly. "I won't leave you." She reached into her torn cloak and pulled out the crystal capsule. "Again, drink it," she said, holding it out. Eli blinked. "What?" "It's blood," she said. "Synthetic, made from my DNA. What will it do to me?" "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But if we're going to survive, you'll need more than human strength." Eli hesitated for only a second. Then he took the capsule, popped the seal, and drank. It burned like fire down his throat. His body trembled, his vision blurred, and then everything exploded with light. His heart pounded faster, louder, his muscles tensed like engines being reignited. He dropped to his knees, then rose, stronger than before. Not vampire, not human, something in between. And when the next wave of drones charged the tunnel, he didn't run. He raised his weapon, his eyes glowing red beside hers, and together they fought back. The tunnel floor was scorched and littered with broken machines. Smoke clung to the air like poison, and the scent of burnt metal filled their lungs. Eli stood beside Virea, chest rising fast, the rifle hot in his hands, but it wasn't just the weapon keeping him standing. It was the blood he drank, the strange burning strength that now pulsed through every part of him. His heartbeat was no longer steady, no longer purely human, and neither was he. Virea looked at him with quiet. "Ah, you took it," she whispered. "I did," he said, voice deeper, eyes still glowing faintly red. "Do you feel it?" He nodded. "It's like I can hear your heartbeat, even when you're not speaking." She stepped closer, placing a hand against his chest. "Our blood speaks now," she said. "You carry my flame." The creature she carried, the bloodborne, was stirring weakly in her arms. It was scared, its body trembling from every sound in the dark. But when it looked at Eli, it didn't scream anymore. It blinked slowly and reached out a hand. "Even it can feel it," Virea said softly. "You're more than just my ally now." "I'm not sure I wanted this," Eli replied. Neither did I, she said, her voice barely a breath. But maybe fate doesn't care what we want. Before they could say more, the wall behind them cracked loud. Sharp, unnatural. From the hole emerged something larger than a drone. It was humanoid, wrapped in silver armor. Its face hidden beneath a smooth black mask, but the symbol across its chest was clear a blood insignia, shaped like a fang. Vera's eyes widened. Blood Judge, she whispered. What the hell is that? Eli asked, already raising his weapon. They're not here to capture, she said, backing up. They're here to erase. The judge raised an arm, and the floor beneath them trembled. A beam of red light shot out, slicing the air where Varaya had been standing seconds before. Eli tackled her to the side, the bloodborne tumbling safely behind a rock. Another blast came, and Eli rolled behind a broken terminal. I'll draw him out, Eli growled. No, Varaya said. He'll kill you. I'm not the same as I was 10 minutes ago, he said, standing tall. He ran into the open and fired 3 shots, precise and fast. The blood judge absorbed the blasts, barely flinching. But then something strange happened. It tilted its head, stepped forward, then stopped, staring at Eli, studying him. Human. The judge spoke in a voice like ice scraping steel. You carry forbidden blood. Eli's eyes glowed brighter. Yeah, and I'm not giving it back. For the first time, the judge hesitated. You should be dying, it said slowly. Guess I'm not normal, Eli replied. Varaya stepped beside him now, hands glowing with red energy. You don't understand, she said to the judge. He chose to share, not take. Unnatural. The judge hissed. Necessary, she answered, and together, they struck Hila, firing from one side. Varaya, releasing a pulse of red light from her palms. The judge reeled back, its armor cracking at the joints. But then it screamed high and violent, and a pulse wave slammed them both into the wall. The bloodborne cried out, crawling toward them. Its small body shook as it reached for Eli's hand. And then something impossible happened. The glow from Vera's body passed through the bloodborne and into Eli. Their lights merged, and Eli's veins lit up like fire in the dark. He stood, bleeding, cracked, but unbroken, and when he stepped forward, even the judge stepped back. You don't belong here, the judge said. Neither did she, Eli replied, but she made a place anyway. You threatened the balance. No, he said, raising his weapon again. We're rewriting it, and in that dark tunnel, where metal met blood and power met choice, a new kind of force stood against the old. One human, one vampire, and one fragile creature of both. Together, they wouldn't just survive, they would change everything. The blood judge's body lay shattered across the tunnel floor, its silver armor cracked like broken stone. Sparks flew from its chest, where Eli's final strike had hit, powered by blood, fire, and something deeper will. Varaya stood beside him, panting, her hands shaking from the energy she had burned through. The bloodborne creature crawled up to her leg and leaned against it like a child returning to its mother. For a moment, everything was still. No drones, no alarms, no voices hunting them, only silence, broken by the flickering light above and Eli's uneven breath. He was still glowing faintly, his blood not human anymore, but not fully vampire either. It scared him, and he didn't know how long it would last, but right now, it was keeping them alive. Varaya stepped forward and crouched beside the broken judge. From its chest, she pulled a black crystal, core-shaped like a spike, pulsing red. Inside, Eli narrowed his eyes. What is that? The Order's memory, she replied. Every mission, every target, every name, stored here. You can use that. I can use it against them, she said, and I will. She didn't look like the weak girl dying in the sand anymore. She looked like a queen, or something older, something powerful. Eli noticed the way her voice had changed, deeper, clearer, no longer trembling. You're stronger, he said quietly. She looked back at him. So are you. He turned away, unsure what he had become. The power still burned inside him like a second heart. He wasn't used to it, didn't ask for it, but it was part of him now, and it wasn't going to leave. As they walked deeper into the tunnels, they reached a rusted stairwell leading up. Viraya paused, holding the black crystal in one hand, the bloodborne in the other. Above this point is Sector Grey, she whispered. What's in Sector Grey? Their nest, she said, her voice tight. The High Council, the ones who make the laws, who call us monsters. They live there. Eli stared at the stairwell. Are we ready for that? No, she said honestly, but they won't expect us to come this way. They'll think we're still running. Exactly. She moved first, and Eli followed. Each step up felt heavier, not just from the air pressure or the weight of the weapons, but because of what waited above: judgment, history, maybe death. At the top of the stairs was a sealed blast door, cold and silent. Viraya placed her hand on the panel, and the red in her veins glowed brighter. The system scanned Earth and blinked. Green. The door opened with a slow hiss, revealing a dark control chamber, lit by long pillars of light. In the center were 3 tall figures, seated on black thrones. Their eyes glowed red, their skin pale, their robes woven with blood threads. The council, they didn't stand, didn't show fear. They simply stared at her. Viraya, one of them said, we thought you were dead. Not yet, she answered. Stepping into the room, Eli followed. Silently, weapon lowered but ready. The council's eyes shifted to him. A human, the second one said, voice like silk over blades. She nodded. He gave me what none of you ever did: permission, choice. She held up the crystal taken from the judge's corpse. I have your secrets now, she said. Your hunts, your executions, your broken pacts. The third council member leaned forward. And what do you plan to do with them? Viraya looked over her shoulder at Eli, then back at the council. Burn your throne to the ground, she said. None of them moved, but something deep beneath the chamber began to hum, a pulse, building from below. You should have stayed. Dead, the council whispered as one. Eli stepped forward, eyes glowing red, rifle in hand. We're not good at following orders, he said, and the chamber lights exploded as the fight for the future began. Not between races, but between old lies and new blood, and this time, the human was on fire. Smoke swirled around the throne chamber, thick with fire and blood. Sparks rained from broken light pillars as the ceiling trembled. The council had summoned their guards, their shadows, their ancient weapons, but none of it was enough. Eli fought, like a storm, his body still glowing from the synthetic blood flowing inside him. Every step, every strike, every breath fueled by more than strength. It was will, it was choice, and Viraya was right there beside him. Not hiding, not running, but leading. The blood-born creature stayed tucked under a shattered control desk, watching with wide glowing eyes. It did not cry, it did not tremble. It watched its new world being shaped in fire. One council member fell first, cut through by Viraya's energy blade. The second tried to flee, but Eli struck him down with a shot that echoed like thunder. Only the final one remained, older, taller, voice cracked from age and pride. You think this changes anything? He spat. You've killed us, Viraya replied, stepping forward. No. The old one hissed. You've doomed your kind to extinction. She looked at Eli, then at the bloodborne behind them. No, she said, we've given them a future. The final blast from Eli's weapon ended it. The last of the council fell, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the chamber of judgment went silent. They stood together in the middle of the ruin, one human, one vampire, and a new life form born of both. The lights faded, replaced by natural sun as the upper chamber doors burst open. Wind poured in, warm and clean. They stepped out together into the broken daylight. Above them, ships began to appear in the sky, vessels, responding to the destruction of the council. Viraya looked up and narrowed her eyes. They'll come now, she said. Let them, Eli answered. They'll find something new waiting. They didn't run, they didn't hide. They stood on the edge of the old vampire empire and let the future see them. In the months that followed, Vera's message spread across systems about synthetic blood, about choice, about peace. Many vampires resisted, but others listened. They saw the bloodborne and realized something sacred had begun. Eli never returned to scavenging. Instead, he stayed by Vera's side. They weren't lovers, not in the way people expected, but something deeper had grown between them, a bond, not of flesh, but of trust, the kind that saves worlds. And the creature they rescued, small, pale, wide-eyed, learned to walk, to speak, to smile. It would become the bridge, a being of both, loyal to neither side, but respected by all. People came to see it, not with fear, but with hope. They whispered stories of the man who gave blood to save a dying vampire, and the vampire who gave everything to change her world. They never asked for statues, but the stars remembered them anyway, not as monsters, not as heroes, but as proof that something better was always possible. Even in the darkest tunnels, even in the thirst, even when all seemed lost, all it took was one human,